Harvard has a class size of like 1,500. And so if 6,000 students are applying with 14 plus APs and you apply with 2 or 3, you're at a disadvantage. 83,000 took more than 10. Hello, and welcome to the Admittedly podcast. My name is Thomas Caleel. I'm the former director of MBA admissions and financial aid for my alma mater, the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. In this podcast, I don't promise easy answers or quick fixes, but I will use my decades of experience to help you achieve your education goals. Now let's get started. Hello, and welcome to the Admittedly podcast. I'm your host, Thomas Caleel, and today we're going to be talking about academic rigor, why course selection matters, and how you should approach it from middle school through high school. Before we jump into that, I want to say thank you to all of you following us on Apple and Spotify. Really appreciate it. If you're just listening, please follow. You don't want to miss the information that's coming in this news cycle. For those of you following us on YouTube, really appreciate it. Hitting subscribe means a lot, and we appreciate it. And as always, welcome your comments. You can do that on YouTube, or you can go to our Instagram and TikTok social media at admittedlyco. Tell me what you think about this topic. Now, I'm bringing up the topic of academic rigor because it's something that comes up consistently. One of my highest performing reels ever on social media was where I was asked the question, is it better to get an A in an easier class or a B in an advanced class? And of course, my answer to that is take the advanced class and get the A. Now, it's a very unpopular opinion, and I appreciate that. But at the end of the day, this podcast, we're talking about ultra selective universities, Ivy Plus, the top 10, top 20. And one of the things that's really been cause for concern, it's been in the news a lot lately, is grade inflation. Grade inflation is completely out of hand. In fact, in 2023, the Dean of Admissions at Emory came out and basically said, we don't even trust GPA anymore. It's not an indicator of ability. We're seeing that reverberate through the UC system, but a lot of schools are really coming out and saying, hey, our students are not prepared. They're not able to write. With the rise of AI, it's getting even worse. I can tell you 20 years in admissions, I'm seeing students that I'm working with now from top schools, top boarding schools, top private schools, top public schools across the world are coming to us functionally unable to write a persuasive essay, and it's very, very troubling. But more importantly, the question is not what's my GPA, because whenever I talk to a family, they'll say, their GPA, my student's GPA is X. And I'm like, okay, but what classes are you taking? What courses are you taking? How are you challenging yourself? And that always kind of flummoxes them a little bit. And one thing I do want to talk about is academic rigor. When we talk about academic rigor, you have IB, AP, A levels, and then you have a group of schools in the United States that have are no longer offering AP classes. So they're offering honors classes or advanced classes or whatever they call them in lieu of AP classes. And look, let's go through this. So IB, very, very rigorous. You got 3 HL, 3 SL classes. That's high level, standard level. And it's very rigorous. You take the same classes for 2 years. You go very, very deep. One of the nice things about the IB curriculum is that universities tend to respect it because while predicted marks are given from the school, the actual grading on the IB exams is done offsite. And so there is an integrity to it. Same thing with A levels, where you're taking 3 A levels. Of course, same thing, with IB, you want your HLs to line up with your intended major. Same thing with A levels. And so if you're thinking about a STEM, engineering or business, for example, you want HL maths, AA. You want HL maybe physics, HL economics for A levels. Same thing. Now we are seeing our really top students doing 4 A levels and 4 HLs and 3 SLs and IB. If you're in that system, drop me a comment. Let me know what you think. Is that feasible? But now we're going to shift to the more predominant kind of US models, which is AP and not this non-AP modality. If your school does not offer AP classes and exams, there's a couple of choices you have to make. So first of all, you need to think about your school's relationship with universities. So if you're going like Choate and there's no AP exams, okay, Harvard, Yale, Stanford, they all know that when they get a Choate transcript, they know how to parse it. They know what honors means. They know all those good things. The only danger you have is that if you are applying, for example, to the UCs where you can't use standardized testing, or if you want to apply to Oxbridge, you do need AP scores, exam scores. And so you might want to see which classes of yours dovetail with the AP curriculum most closely, the ones that relate to your intended field of study, and then do a little bit of self-studying and take the AP exam. If you're not worried about any of those things, then go ahead and just take those courses. You should be fine. But if you're at a lesser known school that doesn't have a strong track record of sending students to the Ivies and they don't offer APs, then that could be an issue. That could be something that you want to look into and say, hey, I need to bolster my academics and I need to create an opportunity to take some AP exams. And, is it hard? Yes. Is it fun? Absolutely not. Have I had students do it? Yes. Academic performance and test scores have become increasingly important in today's admissions landscape. That's why Admittedly has partnered with Advantage Testing, the nation's #1 private tutoring company. For nearly 40 years, their Ivy League tutors have helped students perform their very best. Help your student get an advantage and learn more at admittedly.co/testing. That's admittedly.co/testing. But now, let's shift to the AP system, because with grade inflation, schools are really, really scrambling right now. So they're looking at SAT and ACT as a proxy for rigor, because those are standardized tests. And they're saying to themselves, okay, what's other standardized metrics that we can use? And those are AP exams. Interestingly, Caltech, Stanford have adopted a policy where you have to submit every single AP exam that you've taken. You need to submit the grades, because sometimes we get students who are like, I don't know, I took Geo, AP, human Geo freshman year, and I got a 3. I don't want to submit that. Couple things you need to think about. Number one, if you're applying to Caltech or Stanford, you're going to have to submit that score. But also, if you take an AP class and you don't submit a corresponding AP exam, then that raises a red flag, and they're going to assume that you didn't do well on that exam. So if you have an A in the course and you don't submit an AP score, what does that do? That tells the reader that a couple things. Number one, your school is grade inflating like crazy, because if you got an A in the class, it shouldn't be that hard for you to knock out a 4 on that AP exam, right? And if you really put some effort in, you shouldn't have, it shouldn't be an immense struggle to get that 5. It really is just diligence and focus over time. But last year, 3 million students took an AP exam. That's from Inside Higher Ed. And here's the interesting statistic. Over 83,000 students took over 10 AP exams, and over 6,000 students took 14 or more AP exams. And look, people are going to come at me, and I get parents yelling at me all the time, and I get it. I am a parent. And I think you need to really step back and say, okay, how important is this goal of Ivy Plus? Because if it's really, really important to you, that's the playing field, that's the competition. And when you're trying to look at course selection, we need to be thoughtful and we need to think all the way through. So in middle school, for example, usually around 7th grade, there's a math placement test that happens right before you go back, or right when you go back to school. And I cannot tell you how many students we've had that get upended by that because they don't pay attention, they don't read the emails over the summer, and they don't prep for that math exam. And what that math exam does is it puts you either on the regular math track or the advanced math track. And if you're on the regular math track and you go into high school and you might not get to calculus until senior year, and that calculus might be at best honors calculus, right? Not AP calculus. If you want to go into like biology, chemistry, humanities, okay, you're doing fine. But if you want any shot at engineering or business or mathematics or really hard quant sciences, our top students there are taking AP BC calculus sophomore year. And no, they weren't held back a year, and no, they're not freaks of nature. They're good at math and they're accelerated, and that's how they lean in. And so they're taking, multivariable calculus junior year and like linear algebra senior year. At the very least, you're looking at AP/BC junior year, and then multivariable calculus senior year. Now, I'm going to get yelled at in the comments. I get it. I get pressed all the time on this. This is not me talking. This is not me saying to you, hey, I want to upend your life. This is feedback from current admissions officers sitting there looking at the volume of highly qualified candidates coming in and saying, okay, you need to have basic fluency in math to succeed in this program. Now, are there outliers who get into programs like Wharton or Harvey Mudd or, top engineering programs who take maybe Calc AB? Yes. And my comments are always flooded with people saying, I did this. And a lot of times it happened a long time ago, but even recently, and the question is, okay, what's the full story of that application? Were they a recruited athlete? Did they come from a unique or disadvantaged background? So there's a lot there, but by and large, for the general, middle of the distribution curve of smart students, you need to be taking BC junior year and then multivariable calculus senior year. If that means you need to take it online, like Berkeley Online Extension or another accredited online program, you got to do what you got to do. I get a lot of pushback on this, but you need to put yourself on the right track, and that starts in 7th grade. 9th grade, you're usually constrained. At most, I've seen, sometimes a student can take like one AP. It's usually AP Human Geo, which is kind of a gimme class, and you should do well in that class, because if you can't do well in that class, it really means you're not paying attention. But what you want to do is look at the number of APs available to you. So I read that statistic, over 6,000 students last year took over 14 APs. And these are generally larger schools with access to a lot of APs. And what the admissions officer is doing is they're saying, okay, there are 16 APs available at your school. How many did you take? So if you take 3, you're really not pushing yourself that hard. Do you need to take, 14 out of 16? Not necessarily, right? And a lot of the top schools came out a few years ago and they're like, hey, we're trying to cool down this arms race. And if you want to be an English major, you don't have to take AP Calc BC. That's okay. And I think there is merit to that. I think definitely in the areas you want to study, you have to lean in. You have to take the most rigorous coursework available, but you have to take every class AP? No. And that really is balanced out by your extracurricular activities. So how deeply are you involved in sports or theater or clubs or an internship or work? And because, there is an acknowledgement that these classes are a lot of work. And so as you're thinking about freshman year, you're taking the most challenging courses available. Generally, as a freshman, you don't have a lot of options. And then I think what you need to do is have an assessment and say, okay, this summer, do I need to take some catch-up work and maybe jump a year in math? Now, be careful, because there are plenty of high schools out there that don't allow that. We got a student right now down in LA, and he's distraught because he didn't realize that he had to take that test in 7th grade. He got placed on the standard math track, and now his school is like, you can take advanced math classes. We're not going to give you credit for them, and we're not going to show them on your transcript. And most importantly, if you take them, we're not going to jump you ahead a year in math at school. And so he's in this conundrum because he really wants to go study business, but he's going to barely hit calculus, regular calculus, by senior year. And that's just not going to work for him. And we're trying to figure out ways to position him and focus him and do some other things to kind of demonstrate his ability, but you don't want to be that. You don't want to be that student.
This show is brought to you by Early Edge Plus, Admittedly's flagship coaching program for high-achieving students and their families. At Admittedly, we've built a team of former admissions officers from top schools like Wharton, Duke, Stanford, Yale, Harvard, and University of Chicago. We know what actually gets students into top colleges because we've been in the room making those decisions. If you want that insider perspective, visit admittedly.co/apply. That's admittedly.co/apply to book your free family action call with one of our admissions advisors today.
Sophomore year, you're ideally taking more APs, focusing in, you've had a chance to explore science, English, history, math, a couple disciplines, language. freshman year, and now you can lean in sophomore year a little bit. And you're setting yourself up for the advanced classes junior year, and by senior year, you should be at the absolute apex of your academic trajectory in the areas that you want to study. Now, a trap I do see people fall into, AP Calc BC junior year, and then they're like, I'm going to take AP Stats. And look, AP Stats is considered a bit of a laydown class. It's not hard. If you're going into social science like psychology, yeah, take AP Stats. That's great. If you're going into business or hard engineering and you go from AP Calc BC to AP Stats instead of taking multivariable calculus, they know you're dodging, and that's just not a good look. And I get it. There's a lot of competing priorities. You don't want too much academic pressure. Students are already sleeping too little. I get all the arguments. However, when you're dealing with a pool of 50, 60, or 145,000 applicants to UCLA, this is your competitive set, right? Students that are taking over 14 APs. I mean, think about, Harvard has a class size of like 1,500. And so if 6,000 students are applying with 14 plus APs and you apply with 2 or 3, you're at a disadvantage. 83,000 took more than 10. And so we're really looking at how are you maximizing the opportunities available to yourself. And in this environment, test scores matter, and you need to be cranky on the AP exams. You have to prioritize that. You have to get the tutoring. You have, whatever that looks like, working with a teacher, working with a peer tutor group, contacting us, letting us put you in touch with Advantage Testing, who have great tutors. All of that matters because as schools are wrestling with the reporting requirements and increased scrutiny from the federal government, they are leaning back on test scores, which are becoming now even more important with grade inflation and the fact that they're taking students who don't have the underlying fundamentals in terms of reading, writing, and I hate to say it, but arithmetic, mathematics. And so really trying to look and press. So senior year, you should be doing as many advanced courses as you can possibly do. And by the way, very important, you can't just downshift spring term. You can't stack your first semester or fall and winter term with really, really hard courses, and then spring you're taking basket weaving and PE. That doesn't work. They're going to look at your individual line item courses. For those of you who haven't been in the Common App yet, you have to basically list every single course you took since freshman year and the grade that you received. And they're looking at that, and a lot of work that's being done on your file. So you often hear that, it takes 5 to 7 minutes to read your file. And that's true, but that's done after the transcript team has gone in and basically pulled your transcript apart and figured out what does your GPA look like, weighted, unweighted, what classes are you taking, what rigor are you taking, and then that data is incorporated in your application. And then the full-on readers are going in, they're like, okay, we know how to make sense of this. We're looking at the school report, the school profile. All of this kind of comes together. So what I'm trying to say here is academic rigor is back. How you choose your courses is absolutely critical to your success. A lot of the work we do with our admittedly students, especially in the early years, is course selection. What courses are you taking? But more importantly, when you're taking this course, what does it mean for next year? And then what does it mean for the year after that? So we're trying to look at the entire arc of your educational journey and how we're setting you up for the strongest possible recommendations, the strongest run at your intended major. If you are looking at 2 majors and you might be applying, for example, to economics at a few schools and business at a few schools, that makes a big difference. If you're looking at applying as a humanities major, right? How are you bolstering that? How are you bolstering that approach to the university of I'm deeply, committed to humanities, and so AP Lit, AP Lang, a bunch of AP History courses, really digging into reading, research, writing, all the good things that come along with a humanities major. We got a lot more to talk about on academic rigor, so please follow along. Make sure you're following, subscribing. What do you think of this? Do you think it's fair? Do you think it's kind to the students? Do you think the students are reaching a breaking point? I'd love to hear from you at AdmittedlyCo. That's at AdmittedlyCO on Instagram and TikTok. Tell me what you think. I'm in the comments. I'm in the DMs answering you every day. I look forward to it. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us today. Please take a moment to subscribe to the Admittedly podcast and download this episode. I welcome you to share your thoughts and questions with me. You can find us on social media at Admittedly Podcast. I look forward to continuing our journey together.